it definitely wasn't like a formal decision to move to Massachusetts. I mean, I think Leah and I mean, all of this was kind of happening at the backdrop of COVID too, where, Meyer and Matt and Hav and Jacob and Aaron spent, a lot of time together on the Hobby Moon and Tomales Bay, and Leah and I weren't able to get out there because of it. And like, our top priority was, let's just get to Boston. Like, we need to get there. And we were working both remotely at the time, and so it was not a problem to just get up there. And then we were just like, we're just gonna stay here as long as we possibly can. And that's been like a year and a half at this point or something, which is unbelievable. But I don't think it was and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it was a decision like we're moving to Boston or we're moving to Massachusetts from Texas. It was, we need to be immediately close to them and with them, and in a way that we aren't, even though we're talking every day, in a way that we aren't when you're just in person living with the person or living right next to them and being able to be in person with them.
Yeah, we had been in Dallas. Javi was diagnosed in December of 2019, and we got a call learning that diagnosis. I think Jacob and Aaron were already in Boston with them, visiting, yeah. And there had been a lot of concern leading up to, in the past couple of weeks leading up to this final diagnosis, and we got the call, I think it was on a Tuesday, and we were on a plane the next morning or later that afternoon, I can't remember, kind of an indefinite amount of time to be in Boston. And then, as Mike said, over the next few months, so we were kind of going back every other weekend, and then in March when COVID got really bad, I was feeling this sense of panic of, do we need to get in the car and drive from Dallas to Boston to be with them? Or like, are we gonna get stuck here and never see Hav again? Like, is the world shutting down? And so as quickly as we could, it wasn't even a decision that we talked about. We just figured out how to get a flight and be in Boston, and then the amount of time that we spent here and what apartment or house we lived in together kind of evolved over the last year and a half. And it was a no-brainer. Of course, we were going to be here, and for as long as we needed to be.
Yeah. I mean, all of our stuff is still in a storage unit in San Francisco. But yeah, this notion of a no-brainer to all be together, that is definitely clear in what happened. But I will say, it felt like every day there was something that we had to move out of the way logistically or administratively that became so easy to say, what's the most important thing? And the most important thing was always being there for Hav and Maya and Matt, and then eventually Kai. And yet there's a lot of stuff that you have to move out of the way in order to make it happen. And so I just cherish that we were aligned on what the most important thing was, and that then made all of the stuff easier. But it wasn't, it's not straightforward, especially with the backdrop of COVID, but it was clear.
All of our employers have been very understanding, and I think, speaking from my own perspective, I think it's also because it didn't come as a surprise to my supervisor that family is so important to me, because kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, we've always been this close. And so the people I work with and that I'm in school with know all about my family and know how important prioritizing family had always been, even before there was ever concern about Hav. And, I work in a relevant kind of in speech-language pathology and pediatric speech-language pathology. So when we did start having concerns, I was also talking to my colleagues and my classmates about some of the concerns we were having, and so they were kind of aware. But I think it made sense to them that this is what we were all doing, because they understood our relationship with Javi and with Myra and Matt and our family. And I think that it's hard to be the aunt and the uncle in terms of this disconnect between internally how close we feel to it and externally how that role is perceived.